Why is his office so hot?
I delegated that responsibility to
I
Jason
think he
Olson.
might be in charge of that.
What happened?
On the thermostat tells you how hot it thinks it's outside.
Oh,
Good
Yeah,
evening
rotates
and
that.
welcome to the City Council Conference of Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. There are two items on the agenda. The first is discussion regarding the Young Family Athletic Center operator. Mr. Olson, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Jason Olson, Director of Parks and Recreation, here to talk to you about the YFAC today and an operator update. Before we hop too far into that, just give you a little background about the Young Family Athletic Center. It's a Norman Ford project. And you kind of looking over this gives you all the background between of what's going into the center with 8 basketball courts, 12 volleyball courts, 25-meter pool, an 8-lap 25-meter pool, and also a warm-up pool, which we're also calling 25 yards, concession stands, retail space, admin offices. We also partnered with Norman Regional Health System to put in a sports performance center. And back in July of 21, we did work out a donation between the city and the Trey Young Family Foundation for $4 million and named the center after the family, the Young Family Athletic Center. A little bit more background on the project budget. As you can see, these are all of our things that we've identified to go into this project for a total of about $44.5 million. Construction timeline, we are right in the middle of construction. If you drive out there, everything's cleared around the property. You get a clear view of this monster building that's out there and all the uses and all the excitement behind this. And to go farther into this, we're very lucky in Norman because of our residents, what they voted for. And the building that we're getting here is one of a kind. Just between the ability to do sporting events, swimming, and having a world-class sports performance center in there, there's no other place in the country that's going to be close to what we have right here in Norman, Oklahoma. It's pretty dang cool if you ask a Parks and Rec director. But right here you kind of see all of our milestones that are identified, everything from the start of construction back in 2021 of October. And you can kind of see that we'll hit substantial completion mid-December. We're also planning on having a big celebration sometime in December. And we think that we are be able to get moved into our building and get in our office and maybe get a temporary occupancy permit somewhere in November, late October. Just the layout of our gym or our facility, you got all of your gyms on what would be the south side going to the north side where you have 2 pools and the sports performance center in the middle and all your locker rooms. Down on the bottom half of your screen, you see the retail and concession space. And going all the way over, you have bathrooms and tournament areas for our large tournaments we plan on having. Here's what the courts will look like. We just got this finalized about 2 weeks ago, so y'alls are some of the first to see it. We think it's a really cool layout. This is a picture that I pulled off of our live streaming camera today. So this is the facility here about 4:30. A few pictures that we grabbed earlier this week, earlier this week would be, since it's Tuesday, would be Monday.
does that count?
It does count. They do have water in the pool. They're doing a water test right now where they fill up the pool, leave water in there for a week or two to make sure that there's no major leaks. This is our rec pool, 4-lane pool by 25 yards. They also have, when we went by there on Monday, this was actually taken at the last part of last week. This pool was all the way full, but this is our competitive pool. It's 2 meters deep, about 6 foot 8 inches. A picture of our gym area. I always make the joke, they made all this concrete pour in one single night, which is absolutely amazing to me. It was 140 trucks of concrete when they poured the gym floor. They started at, it was last summer, they started at 7 p.m. on that night and didn't finish until about 10 p.m. the following morning, so they did it all overnight. And I would also think if you took off from the Norman Airport that Friday and came back that Saturday morning, you would be confused and think, man, they put another runway down, but it's that big. A little peek through the Norman Regional Clinic into the gym. I know this is not optimal, but this is the one I could find on my phone that I took the other day when we were walking through. I have a great view from the second floor Norman Regional onto the basketball courts. This right here, and the reason we're showing this right now, I'll kind of talk about this a little bit when we get into our advertising portion of our revenue. But we have a 74-foot LED screen that will go in there. The three colors indicate what we can do for perhaps maybe an e-sports type tournament. We can have 3 individual game systems going on there. This also will work from anything from streaming the games that are actually happening inside the gym or in the pool area. We can do advertising on there. We can do movies. We can do live events, like if Trae Young's in the All-Star game or in the playoffs, or the finals. We want to make sure that we don't underestimate our own Norman guy. So very cool that this is going in there. Once again, this is one of those things you'll never see at another youth sports facility. Very, very large screen, and we're able to take advantage of this.
Jason did tell me that Jerry Jones was jealous of
Yeah.
this screen in Norman, Oklahoma. So it's big.
I like it when Daryl adds things in. It kind of throws me off my game a little bit. But right here is Adidas space. We did get a commitment from Adidas. Norman Regional is going to operate this portion, and not that it's on paper yet. We're working towards that with the Trae Young Family Foundation and the Norman Regional Foundation. But all these proceeds that are made, or all the profit that's made in here, will be split between those two foundations, and all the money that Trae Young Foundation makes will be immediately invested back into the facility through scholarships. And I will also say that when we have all these kids coming from Texas, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, they walk in here and they see a one-of-a-kind Trae Young shoes that you only can buy at the Young Family Athletic Center. We get $170, and if you take 8.25% of tax off that, we're going to make a lot of tax money selling some shoes in this place. Just a couple more pictures of the Adidas store that's going to go in there. It's pretty dang cool. Also, I'll add that I don't know of another recreation facility in the country that has a major shoe brand that it will have a vendor spot inside the rec center. So we think this is completely awesome. So kind of hop into the operator portion of this. As y'all probably noticed with the packet we sent out, we also included a memo in there. We did select Santa Fe Family Life Center out of Oklahoma City as an operator at one point, and I think that was back in 2001. In May, we realized that the operatorship with the Santa Fe Family Life Center was not going to work out, so we came to a mutual agreement to stop negotiations on our contract. And we think it's the Parks Department is now talking about it'd be in the best interest of the facility for the Parks Department to operate this facility, and we're going to kind of go over everything that we have inside this policy. So on August 8th, I believe, you'll see a facilities policy put forward on a council agenda by resolution, giving the Parks Department and the Parks Director certain authorities to set prices inside the center, along with annual operating partners, advertising and marketing fee agreements. As we're talking, like, we think we can make a lot of revenue off that big board that's going to be inside there. If you go down and look at the facility manual that we included inside the packet, one of the big things that we wanted to make sure that was clear was identifying our community partners. We have a lot of stakeholder groups which helped us through the whole Norman Forward projects that made sure, we want to make sure they're recognized and make sure that they have a spot inside the Young Family Athletic Center. So community partner, by definition, is identified in this policy manual as a community partner that will be defined at the YFAC as a school, sports club, or nonprofit that fits within the mission of the Young Family Athletic Center, that will be allowed to enter in annual agreements with the Parks and Recreation Department, and the Parks and Rec Department will keep a community partner list, and we will update that list by recommendation of the Park Board of Commissioners, and we'll also add that anytime that as we set the fees for the YFAC, and anytime that we update partner agreements or annual agreements for marketing and advertising, we will also get those added by recommendation of the Norman Park Board. Hop a little bit farther into there. This is one of the parts of the policy is a fee schedule. So we have an individual membership would cost about $300 a year. This is if you make an annual payment up front, or $30 a month if you choose to do that monthly. And this is for Norman residents or seniors, veterans, military, first responders. I made all these little small acronyms that I only know what they mean, so I'll try to do my best to describe, but they're written out in full in the policy. I couldn't fit them all in that blue box. $300 a year for individuals, $960 for a yearly payment, one-time payment. For a family, or if you want to go monthly, it's $30 a month or $100 a month for a family. Memberships for non-residents, what we're recommending is $360 a year if you're not a Norman resident, or a $35 a month. Family, $1,200 a year or $120 a month. We also will have day passes as an option. If you're a Norman resident, it would be $5 to get into either the pool or the multi-sports area. Now, when I put in the other day, it made sense inside my head. I don't exactly remember what that means, but basically, if you're not a Norman resident, non-Normanite, it is $7 for a day pass. Senior, veterans, military, or first responders, $5. 12 and under, you'd be $3, or under $3, it would be no cost to come into the facility. Now, we also identified onto our fee policy the difference between a private event or a practice rental. So these are broken down by half courts for basketball, or 4 courts, which is $35 or $70. Volleyball would be $70 an hour. Pickleball, if you want to come in there and get your own pickleball court, which we do have the ability to put about 18 pickleball courts into the multi-sports area, would be about $45 an hour. Conference room, which would be probably paired perfectly with a party if you want to rent the pool, or part of the gym for basketball or pickleball. $25 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. Pool lanes, we do have a lot of people that would want to rent that their own pool lane for an hourly basis, or teams that come in to rent that. $25 an hour per lane. Recreation pool, if you want to rent that for your own party or something like that, it'd be $150 an hour for a 2-hour minimum, total of $300. Competition pool would be $250 an hour, 2 hours minimum.
Yes, sir.
So people pay to get in, and then can you just go shoot hoops, or you have to pay $35 to use half of a court?
So this is if you do one of the private rentals or a practice rental, then that would go in place of your day pass.
This fee is to reserve space.
Yes.
But anybody just walks in, they pay $5, they're a Norman resident, they can go swim.
Yes.
They don't have to pay to use the pool.
Yes, correct. So that
But if they
$5
want to
day
reserve
pass
a
would be
lane
for a day
a
pass.
specific time, then
Yeah.
they could pay that, okay.
Correct. And that lane pool rental is mainly talking to, like, if you have some kind of practice, or you're working out and you want your own separate space from everybody. And there's a lot of times and I got my pool expert back there in the room. How wide is a pool lane, Josh?
7 feet.
So you can have more than one person technically swimming in when you have open lane time in a lane area.
Can you remind me again how many courts we have of each?
So our basketball courts, we would have 8 full courts, volleyball, 12 volleyball courts, and if we do pickleball, we can have up to 18 pickleball courts. And if you go back to your alignment, have to go through all the cool pictures of our
We
Adidas
love
store.
them. We love them.
Go backwards. So we do have a championship court, so that's the one that's on your left side that's kind of laid out. That is ideally set up with, you will have tip and roll bleachers that can be moved anywhere inside the facility. So if we have a big event and they need one basketball court, that is an option. But we do have an overlay of basketball courts on top of that. And there is also, which you can't really see, there's 12 volleyball courts lined out in there, and you can see those little bitty dots on the left side of your screen on those 6 courts. That would add up to 18 pickleball courts.
Oh. Thank you, sir.
Event rentals, and this is where I think that we're going to be very good. And we've heard the city manager, Daryl, talking about a lot of times the opportunity to catch other people's money. This is where We'll have events, regional type tournaments, national type tournaments where we'll have a group come in and rent a whole facility. And you see kind of a range in there. We're going to have non-peak times versus peak times. Also on the lower end of the range, it depends what they need. We do have a lot of technology that's behind our, having an athletic event. If they need access to scoreboards, if they need access to the big board, if they need access to the streaming, all that's kind of wrapped up in here. If they need support on staff-wise, that all could be wrapped up in here. But the average rental will be somewhere between $65 and $85 per hour for an event rental, a minimum of 4 hours. So if we were kind of playing around with a little bit of math today. If you have a Friday, Saturday event where you rent all 8 basketball courts for 12 hours a day, that's assuming somebody would start at games at 9 o'clock. They have to be in there at 8 to set up and get done at around 10, 11 o'clock at night. Both nights, that's about $14,000 just for full court rentals of both facilities. And you can add even more to that if you do the volleyball courts, pickleball courts. We do think we have the ability to hold some larger events if we ever want to do pickleball. If y'all haven't played pickleball, you need to fit that into your schedule at some time. It's like a what I call old man tennis. They put you on the smaller courts. A lot of fun. You don't have to run as much. A little bit more invasive than pickleball or ping pong, which is my sport. If you do a non-athletic event inside the multi-sports area, we can kind of see anything from banquets to rentals for dinners or concerts or anything of those kind of type events that would be between $5 and $7.50 an hour, depending on what you need. Minimum of 4 hours. Full pool rental. If you have a dual or a meet out there, you'll need access to both of the pools, so that would be $500 to $750 an hour. And I'll also add that we do have didn't include it into the pictures, but we do have an 18-foot LED screen that also is going into the pool side, where they can do the exact same things they can over in the basketball side, where we can sell sponsorships or we can do any kind of audio-visual things that we need to on the pool side. Also, in our policy manual, we do identify our operational partners. Norman Public Schools is our school partner. Of course, Norman Regional Health Systems is our health partner. Santa Fe Life Center. We part of our when we stopped negotiating, we did kind of put them in there as a preferred tournament partner. They will have space to run tournaments, and we kind of look at that as an ability. They're really good at running tournaments. And they can come in there and we can take a percentage as a facility fee, and they would fully staff it. And there is still a really good percentage to be made on that with somebody else running those tournaments. Norman Optimist Club, as our local youth league partner, we do plan on working with them as a full partner, the city and the Optimist Club working together to, we don't have a name for it yet, but, Trey Young Basketball or the Young Family Volleyball League in Norman, and we're going to be working with him to do all of our local youth leagues. Trey Young Basketball will be our basketball club partner. Sooner Swim Club, our swim club partner. We have had very healthy contact for multiple volleyball clubs. We're trying to figure out who would be the best group to fit in there. So you're looking at all these groups and our paying groups, which kind of, the basketball club partner, swim club partner, and volleyball club partner, they have all agreed to a minimum of $50,000 a year to make sure that they have plenty of practice time. And then if they do run events or anything like that inside the Trey Young or the Young Family Athletic Center, we will get a certain percentage of whatever events they run in there. And so that right there, before we hop into the budget portion, that short and sweet of the facility policy manual. We do have other things that goes in there about, what is how early you can book a practice time, how early far in advance you can book an event, and all that other stuff. But any questions on that portion?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a question about what percentage of time is going to be open rec time? Like swim time, open court. I think people have been concerned about that from the beginning of this, especially as we think about the tournament opportunities, all of the practices, all of these, partner organizations that are running practices and, games and different things. So what is the...
That's a great question. So what's really cool about at least the gym portion, and I want to remind you that we have 8 basketball courts, which is a lot of basketball courts. The center is going to be open up 85 hours minimum per week, and that's just a standard that we're setting. You know, we'll exclude a few holidays here and there, but we have the ability to divide all the courts into 2s. So in the evening, you know, for instance, we can set off 2 for open gym, 2 gyms or 3 volleyball courts for volleyball practice. Have our basketball club partnering on or practicing on 1 court, and then play basketball, adult basketball league on the big court. So I think it's going to be a balancing act, but we do have plenty of room. And talking to our swim club, they're very interested in want a lot of swim time. They have a lot of swimmers, and they're, you know, one of the what I call the OGs of Norman Ford. They're the big pushers, the Pisces groups. They do want a lot of swim time, but as we're sitting there and talking to them and trying to balance out everything, you know, it might be a period of time where the pool is completely open for open swim, and then there might be a certain time where we have 2 lanes or 4 lanes open for open swim. But we're going to try to sit there and trust us. We're trying to figure out how to balance that, and it's a very tough balancing act. And 2, when you throw the youth leagues in there, while trying to that's going to be a tough period of time where we're trying to do youth leagues, open gym, and satisfy our club partners and do tournaments on the weekend.
Yeah, so just saying that there's opportunity to have a mix of things going on in the facility
Oh,
at
yeah.
the same time with, you know, court time and practices and all that kind of stuff. So there is a way to handle all of the needs.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of space on both sides, and mind you, we have 2 pools as well. So even if they're in the competition pool, swimming, we still have the rec pool open for swim lessons or lanes for open swim.
Councilmember Foreman?
Okay, one, I think this is hilarious that on Facebook this has been dubbed as like a parks money grab, but liking to think that we're gonna be kind about this. So one thing that because we've been talking about this my entire tenure on council, we have talked about a fee sliding scale, or is that still? Because you had the 30 a month person, 100 family.
Got
Are we
this
still gonna do that?
exact same question at our ad hoc meeting yesterday, and the best comparable would probably be our Westwood Family Aquatic Center, which we plan on doing the exact same thing with our sliding scale out there. So, for example, if you're on full free meals at school, you disapprove that you have that, and then you get 80% off of your cost. If you're on reduced meal plan at the schools, and I believe it is a 50% cost. So, and that will slide. That won't change day passes to day passes. We're not going to
Sure.
sit there and check everybody's financial
80
background to get
cents
in, yeah,
and-
get in there and stuff like that. But if they want a membership, that would be, we will have a sliding scale that's on that same factor that
Okay.
we do out at Westwood.
On one of the slides, you had the City of Norman final inspection December 6th. So that's right. Are you gonna have staff prepared do we have to approve the policy and then you're gonna start hiring? Are you all
Correct.
prepared to take this on?
We already do have, and Kellen, wave at everybody.
Hi, Kellen.
Kellen is helping us get everything organized. If everything works out, he is going to be our full-time supervisor out there. And Kellen, don't want me to brag on your background, just stop me, which is impossible at this point.
Don't stop.
He's the Norman North head basketball coach. He's also director of basketball with Griffin, which is Blake Griffin's basketball group, which is a huge group that's been going everywhere with Nike. He played college basketball at Weber State with one Damian Lillard, and he was the team captain. They didn't even worry about Damian when he was on the team. So just to say, at least we have a really good one sitting in the wings that's ready.
Marginally experienced.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable.
And he's out there recruiting tournaments right now, and not that we want to make it public. If y'all ask me off the air, that we do have quite a variety of tournaments that are lined up to come to the center. There's 4 live periods. Always get this wrong, and Kellen's going to be cringing. But welcome to my staff's life. Every time I talk in front of a public group, they all cringe. But the 4 live periods, which is basically a chance where the NCAA college basketball coaches have opportunity to be in contact with basketball players. And those 4 live periods are very desired contact periods when facilities like this will have tournaments. So we already have commitments from two different shoe brands. You can guess one of them, Adidas, and another one to come out here and play tournaments out here. And those are not small tournaments. So when you're coming out there, you're talking, we'll need not only access to these 8 gyms, but with an Adidas tournament, we'll also need Northern Public Schools participation to make sure that we're able to provide space for 150 to 180 teams that come into town, and also the college coaches that come along with it. And there's this, like I said, this is a unicorn. There's not very many places like this exist around the country. So it's very cool. I'm sorry, I went on a ramble. Welcome.
No, I love all of that. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. And then I didn't see it anywhere, but what are the hours of operation? What are we
We're
looking
still
at?
working on those, and I did have them on the list, and this is part of what makes the staff cringe. I put them on there, and then I kind of took them off because we're still working on them. But they're, like I said, we're talking about somewhere in the 85 hours a week neighborhood. For example, we'll start at 5:30 in the morning on weekdays and go till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. On the weekends, probably be a 10 to 11 to 6 p.m. type standard. Also in your operation policy manual that we lay before you, we also put cap times on when events have to end by, which I think it's Sunday through Thursday nights, it's a 11 o'clock, and 2 other nights they can end Friday and Saturday at midnight.
Councilmember Foreman, just to share, a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Olson and his staff invited me to go to Oklahoma City to attend a ribbon cutting for a brand-new multi-generational rec facility. The Willa B. Johnson Rec Center, beautiful, really cool thing. It was interesting to engage their staff in conversations about their fee schedules, et cetera. And what Mr. Olson and his team put together does seem to be the standard kind of structure with other recreational facilities and scholarship offerings to make sure everybody has the chance to come in and participate in these wonderful facilities. And that just gave me a lot of comfort knowing, yes, it does seem like we're on the right track. You know, and Oklahoma City just has a much bigger budget and lots more staff.
Sure.
And they're still doing it very much like this.
Awesome. Thank you.
And to add on top of that, we're still working on our local league cost, but this is one of the big things that we've gotten feedback from both the young family and other people in our communities. We won't be charging admission charges for our local league, so there will be one league fee. That will be the cost for the league. Now, if the teams that enter into those leagues who choose to get in a preseason or postseason tournament, there might be additional cost with those in admission, but our regular season will not have an admission charge. And also, the young family has committed not only the money that they'll make from the Adidas store that goes into the foundation, but they've overcommitted several times when you talk to them. They want to make sure every kid in Norman has the opportunity to play at this. And I don't think that there's going to be any barriers if it's transportation or shoes or anything like that. The Trey Young Family Foundation, I think, is going to step in there and make the commitment to make sure everybody has the opportunity to do that.
And our ribbon cuttings are way cooler than theirs.
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Grant?
I was going through the operating agreement. So I guess my thoughts were centering around the sports commission and other things that could come in. And if the city is now the operator, that might streamline things a little bit since you won't have one extra entity in the mix. But then that made me think about insurance, and that's what I was scrolling through that for. So are we looking at entities carrying their own insurance if they're going to be a part of maybe something that's an event that the sports commission helps to facilitate? I assume we're liable for the building,
Yeah.
but are we carrying extra insurance even for the person who's getting a $5 day pass?
So, and I can let the lawyer in the group talk about that because I will completely run this, but I will say the Sports Commission will not host any events. Their main purpose is to help us recruit events. So once they get an event to commit to come to Norman, and they will work with us to book that, and then they will hand it to us to actually do that tournament.
Councilmember Grant, on the team insurance, that was actually the very first conversation I got to have with Kellen was, what is the standard? And Kellen's been to more tournaments than I've been to basketball games, so it is very common that a sponsor of a tournament will make sure all of the teams are insured and they pay all those fees. It happens they'll name us as additionally insured, so we will be covered on the big team event. When it comes to the individual day pass, I'm gonna go in there and shoot hoops and I break my ankle, I'm assuming it is the same level of exposure we have if they're at the 12th Avenue Rec Center playing pickleball and catch a pickleball racket in the face, so.
Right, so that would be covered by the Governmental Tort Claims Act. We're self-insured there, but we do get claims. I can't think of a pickleball injury we've paid, but that is.
That's not how she did that.
That's not how I did this. That's the appropriate way to handle those claims. But yes, insurance will be part of any event rental agreement for tournaments and things like that, certainly.
Okay, and then last question was thinking about ADA and some of those operational partners. Do any of those have I was just wondering, and I guess it was fitting in the insurance cloud too, but would we have the ability to host events for disabled athletes?
So Councilmember Grant, the very first time I saw the group Santa Fe, I saw a flyer for one of their wheelchair basketball tournaments, and I sent it to Jason. I said, "Oh my gosh, we have to do this." And lo and behold, it really is a big deal and absolutely a welcome opportunity in the Young Family Athletic Center. But there is a huge following in that particular style of basketball tournament, and my eyes were opened by reading flyers from the Santa Fe Family Lifestyle Center and their investment in time to do that.
So, and add on to that, Santa Fe, that's one of the parts that we're working on with their site agreement. Once we have the right to Parks Department to go into an annual agreement with them. They are very big in the wheelchair basketball and many other accessible events. So that is one of the things that we're very highly interested in partnering with them, and they have Special Olympics, everything that's up there, but they are, fitting a lot of events into their small center. So we're going to work with them on these type of events and make sure that we're in a big center and have the opportunity to serve more people. But yes, that's very at the top of our mind.
Thank you.
Anything else from council?
Well, I got the budget part to go over.
One's budget, all right.
Yeah, small money details. So kind of go over all of our budgeting that we have projected. We'll have staff cost, operation budget. So right now we're kind of looking at 4 full-time positions going out there: a field operations supervisor, a program coordinator, or 2 of those actually. One we kind of imagine be attached to the aquatics portion, one being attached to the athletics or multi-sports side. Not saying that swimmers aren't athletic, they're way more athletic than me. And then we'll also have an admin tech out there that would kind of take care of all of our paperwork, making sure we keep our calendar straight and everybody's time is getting entered correctly. Also permanent part-time, we're proposing to have about 24 of those. We want to make sure that we have plenty of lifeguards out there, so when you're trying to get the pool open 85 hours ish a week, we have to make sure we have plenty of people going out there. I think at certain times we can have one stuck at each pool, but the majority of some of the times when we're having events or big practices, when there's a lot of people in the pool, that we're going to need more, probably about 3 to 4 people on duty at a certain time. So we're proposing about 15 lifeguards on the sports side, a little bit, the multi-sports side a little bit smaller, about 9 people to assist with operations and doing events over there. That seasonal part-time is about 12. And you look at all the beautiful thing about the part-time employees are attached to this will go up, and this is all budgeted at its max level if we are fully potentially hitting all of our events and the center's full and we have weekend events. If that doesn't happen, you'll see those numbers starting to tick down because we won't need our part-time staff as much. The seasonal part-time is mainly attached to our weekend events, and we want to make sure that we have enough people to run our scoreboards. There's a lot of technology and everything that it's really cool that we have technology, but we also have experienced people to make sure that that's operated correctly and we're hosting good events. So I think we'll have about 12 people attached to doing all that. Operating budget, yeah, you can kind of see that $938,000 that was attached to our employees there at the top. That includes benefits. And I might add, this is when we come on August 8th to bring a budget amendment to you for the operation of this facility, these numbers are actually go down because we'll be presenting, this is a 12-month if we're going full 12 months, but we'll actually be presenting to you a 7-month plan, probably 8 months with employees so we can get them trained. Supplies and materials, that's is all the cool things, rec materials to make sure that anything physical that we actually buy to put into the center, or if we're adding to a certain program, we want to make sure that we have all those supplies that make sure that all of our operations run good. Service and maintenance, this is where our electrical bills are tied up, our when you have custodians and gas, water, electricity, everything's kind of added into that $461,000. Also, internal services, that's attached to just about every cost center. That's just as a cost of what we charge ourselves if we send an electrician or a plumber out there to work on the facility. Revenue projections, as you kind of saw before we all hop too far into that, about $1.56 million is attached to what we think the max operating budget, maintenance and operation budget would be attached to the center. Revenue projections, we think that these numbers are pretty conservative. This is on, a lower end. We do hope we exceed these numbers. I don't want to make Anthony over there too nervous while I'm talking. But memberships, and there's more details if you look into your packet, but we think with memberships about $387,000 a year, day passes $104,000, rentals, and this is where we're kind of focusing on a lot of other people's money, about $650,000 a year. Concessions contracts, so we did have an RFP out on the street for a cafe operator. We only had one person apply with that, so we're going to try to work out contract details with that. But that is a percentage of the city, what the city will receive from that contractor. We're thinking that will land somewhere around 10%, so we're projecting that the concession operator will probably sell somewhere between $500,000, around $500,000 worth of product, and we'll get about $50,000 from them. Classes, this is swim classes, if we do camps, any kind of aqua fitness classes or anything else that we do inside the center will be about $152,000. Advertising or marketing will be about $250,000. And right now we're working with a group called Youth Scoreboards, which they provided free scoreboards out of Reeves Park in exchange that they would sell advertising on those. Once they pay for the full amount of the boards, we will receive a percentage of all the marketing advertising. So we paid for all the boards that are going inside the Young Family Athletic Center, part of our AV contract. So our percentage is going to be pretty high if we let them sell all the marketing in there. Like I said, they think they can be somewhere around a $500,000 range. So we're kind of on the low side, saying after our share, we'll get about $250,000 for about $1.593 in total revenue if that was a 12-month. And then I got my friend and boy Trey Young on here just asking if y'all had any questions. I know y'all asked about a bunch of questions.
Just as we're looking at the numbers here, can you give us an idea of what, our contract would have looked like with Santa Fe? Like, what is the difference in the cost that we are now having to kind of overhead, and then obviously we're getting the revenues to pay for, M&O and our all salaries and all of that kind of stuff. What's the cost difference to the city?
So the contract negotiations that we were working out with Santa Fe were that basically they would pay all the costs except for a few of the utilities, which I think was the city utilities and the internet portion, because we kept adding technology in there. They were a little bit worried about the cost of fiber running into it. But technically, if you look at that, we were going to make no money off that and actually end up at a little bit of a loss paying for water and trash and sewer, and along with the fiber. This one, we do think that we'll end up breaking even or a little bit ahead. And I will also throw in there for Mr. Francisco that this is going to be a special revenue fund. It's going to be set up where we hope to bring in as much money as we spend, and that's going to be budgeted that way every year. But if it does not hit that, then the general fund would have to turn around and support it.
If I may, that was one thing that I know Councilman Montoya was on the Citizens Financial Oversight Board at the time. But that was one thing that they had concerns about was, okay, so what if this thing is wildly profitable? Do we not get any of the money? And the answer to that was no. That they're taking the risk, and if they make a profit, they get to keep the profit. In this case, if it is wildly profitable, we get the profit from it and hopefully pump the money back into the facility.
Yeah, okay. Just trying to understand the the difference in, having an operator and us operating, everything. But, I mean, this is not too different from what we're doing with our smaller footprint in our rec centers right now. This
Yeah.
is just scaling out.
The best comparable would be the Westwood Family Aquatic Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councilmember Holman?
Yeah, I was wondering similarly what the general fund would be if this included a contribution from the general fund at all. Because over the years, we had talked about this facility, or basically capping the city's contribution at, I think, the number 225,000 a year comes into mind of what we said the city would be willing to contribute to the operation of this facility if it needed a subsidy.
And this is where it gets tricky because we have,
That's when we were talking about.
I hope that
YMCA
Norman
running
Ford,
it and all
there's a
that
Norman Ford too, and there's a bunch of projects going on at the same time, but that's the pain of running two projects at the same time. I think you're thinking of the senior center where we're capping out a certain amount with them, and then that was 125,000 a year. This, we had no identified, they bid at a zero level basis except for that we would pay a few of the
I'm
utilities.
talking about like the original proposal to even build this in Norman Ford was the council.
Oh, okay.
The council, we had we'll build this, but what if it doesn't make money? The city general fund can't be on the hook for $1 million a year if it's failing or whatever. So we had put in, I don't know where in writing if it is anywhere, but that was a conversation the council at that time in 2015 we were having was general fund
That's the
subsidy.
difference between having a third-party operator who was taking that risk. If it is a money loser, it's a special revenue fund, just like all the other special revenue funds. And yes, if it's a money loser in a short period of time or a long period of time, then the city from other sources might be called on to make up those losses. The other thing that I will say was budgeted into Norman Forward was a small contribution from Norman Forward for rental costs, whatever it may be, for the public school swim teams. And you'll recall that was part of the Norman Forward.
It's part of UMP, actually, yeah.
So as it's proposed right now, the general fund won't be needing to subsidize this as it stands at the moment. Could, at some point, be called upon,
Correct.
but as it stands right now, we're not looking at having to subsidize operation.
Correct, yeah, well, we believe it will be a self-sufficient facility.
Well, that was one of the concerns I recall early on with this particular project because it was such a large deal. Pools and all that stuff and the expense of running pools, and we had conversations about how other entities were closing their pools. OCCC and Moore High School closed theirs, and how there wasn't a indoor pool except for the OU indoor pool in the whole South Metro area anymore. And what was the risk of us building this facility and it not generating enough revenue to operate it? So that was definitely, this was the one I think we had the most heartburn maybe about back then was it's the biggest, it's going to cost the most to operate. And what is the ability to actually recoup that? So
And I think the advantage.
it's good to see that it may not need it.
I think the advantage of this is that at first we were talking about two different facilities, which the aquatics facility and the multi-sports was going to be built separately. Now that you have both of those together, I think you lower your risk because the athletic side is probably the most for certain to be more profitable. Also on our pool side, when you start comparing it to some of those older facilities up at OCCC or OU's facility, there is a lot of advancements that's happened in the pool sides with not as, it's still corrosive stuff being pumped into there, but now we're using salt for our pools, which generates chlorine, which is not, you're actually not pouring a bleach or a chlorine gas into there, and also using CO2 as our neutralizer, which is used to be acid, and now it's just a gas that kind of pops in there that kind of balances out the pool, which is a little bit safer than one for people, but also not as harsh on our mechanical systems.
Very good. Turns out to balance out like that.
Councilmember Schuler, did you have a question?
No.
Yes, sir.
So, how much money are we leaving on the table in terms of discounts with our operational partners?
It's a good question. So I don't know, at the high use that they're using it, I don't know if there's a whole lot of money being left on the table. We're still trying to maximize use with them. I would think somewhere in between a 10 or 20% discount, just to make sure that we have for certain money coming in there. We're also capping when we have those operational contracts, you know, for instance, for our basketball club team, we haven't put an hour to that, but that $50,000 inside that agreement will also put a max amount of hours that they can use the facility, and if they go over that hour, then they'll be charged an hourly rate. So we're trying to make sure that we're maximizing as much as we can out of those groups.
Also, like Adidas, which is getting the retail space, are they renting that retail space from the city, or are they getting it at a reduced rate?
So that is actually Norman Regional that's going to be operating that portion of the facility. So right now, we're not set up to charge anything for that, but they're also not making a profit from it. Everybody that works there, Richie, you can correct me. I got Richie from the Norman Regional Hospital's over. Like I said, but Richie's over here hanging out with us, and he can further explain that. So everybody that works in any of your retail, which you have other retail stores in your other hospital facilities, but they're all volunteers, and so ideally the portion of that all goes into these foundations, and we'll split the foundations. Which one goes to? And I don't want to explain what all your money goes to, but the half of it goes to Train Young Family Foundation, which would be invested back into scholarships, which is reducing our rate, because usually when you do a scholarship, you just basically include that into the cost of everybody else's.
So we're not discounting it, we're just giving it to Norman Regional.
We're not giving it to them. They're not necessarily, they're investing back into the facility through scholarships, sharing the profits.
Operating the facility. So we'll have staff who are there to help when the facility's open and or events are happening, and coordinating all the ordering and partnering with Adidas in order to get those supplies in, and making sure that we have stuff on the shelves and accessible to our patrons who come through.
And they're also
The supplies and materials, the $160,000.
that we are not paying for anything that goes inside the Adidas space. So they're paying for full build out of the Adidas space, and everything that they sell is being purchased through them. So they're the full retailer of it. So we're not investing anything inside the retail space.
All right, so if we were to own this space and rent it out, but we're not because Norman Regional has it, what would we be renting it out for per year?
Haven't looked into that, so I don't really know. I don't know if I can give you an answer on that. We'd have to do an analysis of retail space and square footage and get a cost to go along with that.
All right, and so there's a contract that has these terms that gives Norman Regional the rights to using the square footage for their purposes. What contract is that?
We haven't come forward with it. This is all verbal right now. We are going to have a contract agreement for all this before we open this space.
Okay, so this is still up for negotiations.
Technically, yes. Yeah.
So just to keep in mind, there's also a build-out cost to the space, and we're covering that build-out cost to the images that you saw on the screen, and try to recreate something really unique and forward-looking for the patrons who come through.
All right, and that's generous. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're not being too generous. And so that's just my simple question on the numbers and the discount that we're providing for this return. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
No problem.
Sirs.
I don't know where your stuff is.
Next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the comprehensive plan professional services contract. And we've got about 25 minutes. Right? If I can head, yeah.
We can go fast. Quarter after one, can't we? We normally do. He needs at least 10 minutes to switch over.
Good evening, Council. Jane Hudson, I'm the Planning Director. I am super excited to be here tonight to present to you and discuss the item that's on your agenda tonight for the contract for the professional services for the master plans that are going to be coming forward. Just real quick, a little bit of background for this item. We sent out the RFP, we released the RFP in September of 22. We had a pre-proposal conference in October of 22. We had a request from a couple of the possible consultants that did not understand that you had to attend the first pre-proposal conference to be able to submit. And so we opened it up and we actually had the second pre-proposal conference, giving additional consultants the opportunity to ask any questions that they might have. So that's why we have 2 of those on there. We set the December 1st deadline for the proposals. Moving forward in January, we had the interviews, presentations from those consultants that were, we received submittals. And the consultant selection is RDG with Garver as a sub there. And they're here tonight to go over anything and answer any questions that you might have. And then, of course, we have the contract on council tonight. This is just the cover. I just stole this from their submittal that they had back in December. And then also in your packets tonight, or in your agendas, it lists out the scopes. This is a huge process. We've never done anything like this before. Don't know that any community's actually done anything this large. So this is, Jason says he has a unicorn. Well, I get to have a unicorn as well. But, so we've got the land use plan. There's the housing study, which we've all talked about before. There'll be the update to the transportation plan. We have an update to the stormwater plan, the water hydraulic modeling update, the wastewater plan, and then also within that scope, there's the outline of the public relations, which will actually relate back to all of these. So they'll be there and they'll be working as these meetings and as the discussions for the plans are moving forward. We'll have that public relations team as well. Here's the schedule that was submitted, and also this was attached in your agenda tonight as well. But you'll see, so here we are in July, obviously, beginning. We get everything approved tonight. Hopefully, August we'll start some of the background work, and moving forward, looking about 16 months to hopefully get everything done. And as we outlined, the committee, the steering committee will be established, and then the consultants will start setting those meetings and getting schedules and everything set up. But I wanted to let Amy, and Mary Elizabeth is back here. Amy's with RDG. Mary Elizabeth is with Garver, and I wanted to open it up for any questions that you guys might have regarding the process and getting started with this update for Norman.
That's what I'm sure.
So I see on the schedule that it starts next month. This is August. We don't have committees. We haven't
Go ahead.
put people on those committees. We haven't approved, anybody for that. So, what is the, timeline for that?
Sure. I'll go ahead and jump in. Again, Amy Haase, thank you all for having us here tonight. We're super excited about getting started. As Jane said, this is unique, sometimes gets thrown around a lot, but this really is, and it's pretty special. So what we had talked about with Jane and her team is there's a lot of just background data, information, materials that we need to be collecting, researching, just kind of getting the team up to speed and ready to go. And so we feel like we can do a lot of that through the month of August, with the idea then that we would hopefully be kicking off then with the committee in September.
So we would need to appoint a committee by the second meeting in August.
That's what I'm hoping for, yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Holmes?
How would the public safety assessment, where Daryl went, play or fold into this as well, since that won't maybe be starting till the end of the year, but they might wrap up. It might wrap up before this is finished. So would that be, because that might include facilities and land and locations for public safety buildings and stuff. Would that fold in somehow?
I'm not sure that can you?
Yeah, sure, I can probably answer that a little bit too. I would see them as being one of the key stakeholders that we're talking to and interacting throughout this process. We might even, as we get into some of like our land use workshops and so forth, which we're hoping to break down into multiple areas around the community. So we're getting out into different parts of the communities to do those workshops. And so in those areas where they probably at that point will know they have some key ones, we'll be asking them to come in and give us some feedback and guidance during that process.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council? Yes, sir.
Generic, I know we're gonna have a committee for the land use plan. Are we gonna have any citizen input for these other endeavors?
Tons is my plan. Amy, you speak to that, please.
Sure. That's a key part of how we go through this process. It's really important to us. And so, yes, there'll be the committee, but there will also be, as I mentioned, we'll be holding a series of workshops. We will have online platform because some people like to give their engagement in their slippers at midnight, as I put it. We'll be looking at opportunities where we can do pop-up events, where people can come in and give their input in places they wouldn't normally. Maybe hopefully capturing people who won't usually go to a traditional meeting. So just lots of different opportunities. That will be one of the key things we're going to do in August and start off right away. Maybe even this next week, but is laying out what we call the public engagement plan and identifying all of those opportunities and kind of laying out a schedule, but also leaving a little bit of flexibility in there so that we can pivot when we need to if we see a great opportunity to do a pop-up event or that sort of thing too.
Well, that actually dovetails great into what I was going to say next. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, Councilman Peacock, they also said, we also have one on stormwater, transportation, wastewater,
Okay.
and the land use. So there's several committees that will be overseeing these larger master plans.
Subcommittees.
Yeah.
Will there be any kind of education component that goes along with it? Because I know these are pretty heady conversations or topics here.
Right, yeah, that just seems like a natural part of what we do.
Okay,
Absolutely. I think the kind of the website interactive platform will be a really important part of that, where people can kind of come and get information and learn a little bit more. And we find that we do that through all of the kind of sessions, making sure we're explaining things and
Perfect.
using pictures.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
So, what you were asking about the citizen input, that's one of the things that I've been talking to them, from the very beginning, how important that truly is for Norman. I mean, that is a huge component. So I just want to make sure you guys know that we've already been talking about that and how important that really is. And we've got to make sure that we keep that going.
I appreciate you saying that because it can't underscore how important it is.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, this is just to kind of dovetail on this conversation that we're at. Can you state again, Mary Elizabeth, the different kind of groups and committees that will be working? Because, it's not just the land use. We've got several opportunities that we need to appoint people to kind of these other specialty areas. So can you name the ones that?
Yes, ma'am, that's right. So the land use and housing study are going to be under one.
Okay.
And transportation is another subcommittee. And then there's the stormwater committee, and then water and wastewater are going to be held together with the assistance of utilities.
Okay.
So those are the four main subcommittees that will then roll up under an overall steering committee.
Right, and those subcommittees will probably be lean a little bit more on the technical side because those are a little bit more technical documents.
So is that
Yeah.
similar to what we had talked about several months ago when we were looking at kind of those different, so I just want to make sure that we're still moving in that direction.
Absolutely.
And having those committees and which will offer opportunity for more public input than just
Exactly.
having one
Yes.
land use kind of committee. It's like, okay, we're going to appoint people to these specialty committees that have technical, knowledge and assistance. Okay, I just wanted
Part
to
of it,
kind of
yes.
clarify that there is a more robust opportunity
And
to
that
serve on a committee. No, that's okay.
That approach actually
excited.
is something that, yeah, we are, Amy and RDG brought to the table because they have so much experience with comprehensive planning. And so I presented it, but that was truly an RDG-led effort to develop a way for the community to be as involved as possible and employ a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. But yeah, still we'll have a governing steering committee that's comprised of some of those folks to help steer it.
So ideally, some people that are on kind of the steering committee will then be a chair of a subcommittee. Like some of that will be an overlap.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Councilman Gray?
I was kind of curious about the housing strategy, noticing it was like a shorter time span, but also like we have a home-based study that kind of outlines some strategy and goals. So, and I'm sure it's not like the only one that you all could reference, in the discovery phase of these different topics. But do you all see that fitting in there?
Yeah, the housing study will be, obviously looking at the broad spectrum of housing, including the availability of housing for persons that are exiting homelessness. But primarily the housing study will be looking at the demographics of the community and the different income levels and the types of housing that is needed for those income levels currently and then projecting to the future.
And we're kind of going to get a snapshot at this moment in time too, because we have that affordable housing project coming online and some other things. So, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Holman?
Yeah, so on the committee makeup, we had, maybe one of the roadblocks we ran into is that I think we agree that we do want people that do have a lot of knowledge or experience in certain areas, but we don't, at least myself, I don't speak for everybody else, don't want the committees to just be that, because in the initial version, it was like more than half the committee were residents that lived just in Ward 3 and Ward 8. And so those people don't live in East Norman, so they don't know the setting as well as the people that do live in that part of town. So someone may not be an architect or an engineer, but maybe they've lived in a neighborhood for 35 years and they know that area extremely well. And so I wanted to make sure that, I think Councilor Schuler did clarify, but that it's not just a committee of people that are experts in architecture or design or engineering or water resources, that it can also just be regular everyday Norman residents that are interested and want to have that perspective shared.
So can I just want to clarify. So are you talking about the steering committee that council is going to approve?
Well, I was
or
kind
are
of
you
just talking about all the list of names we all submitted, and when we saw
And see,
that
they've not
makeup, it was kind of like, well,
That's
So I guess my question to clarify is
That was
then,
when
are
we
we
were talking about the
only
25,
appointing
26
the steering
people.
committee and then the subcommittees will be selected in another fashion? Like, I think we're a little unclear on who we're actually appointing and what spots do we need to fill?
So I think since I had presented a little bit on this, our goal is not to determine who gets on the committee.
Right.
What we'd like to do is lay out what kind of people might be beneficial for those committees, like a plumber on the wastewater water side. I mean, they might not be an engineer, but they sure have a lot of experience and a very diverse background. Electricians, for example, and people that work in all number of mechanics, for example, and transportation and safety. Those are all valuable as just as much as technical experts that have maybe a degree in that. I think they're all considered technical experts. So we're not necessarily saying a number of people representing a variety of wards. It's just we like to see these people with these types of backgrounds or experiences or inputs to get a really good spectrum of input for those specific
I
committees.
just wanted to avoid there being a situation where we appoint people to committees and we develop a plan and then we face backlash from residents around the city that say, well, that committee was made up of people that live in one certain part of town and we didn't. What about us over here or
Word
the north
for it,
side or whatever?
stormwater.
So just avoiding that situation where people feel like it's stacked up full of people that live in a certain part of town, wherever that may be. And not that the whole committee has to be 3 members from every ward and it's all even, but some balance in between there.
Right. Well, and for me too, that's why the other aspects of the public engagement are really important. Doing the neighborhood level meetings and making sure we're out there and talking with folks about what's happening and they're part of the community. And we'll also do a series of listening sessions that could capture, up to 80 to 100 folks, more on like one-on-one sorts of conversations. So it's really important for us to be able to hear all of those folks and making sure we're trying to reflect what we heard from them as much in the plan as our committee, which should just be giving us kind of feedback and some direction and making sure we're getting to the right places and so forth and through the process.
Okay.
Another thing I loved about their approach is oftentimes there'll be town halls, and there's not necessarily a lot of participation. If we have at the library or a fire station, for example. What they've talked about is maybe setting up at a grocery store, maybe setting up at a trailhead, where we're actually going to the public to get input from them, where they go instead of expecting the public to come to a specific time and place and location. And so I think in that frame, it might allow for a lot more input from a variety of people that, as Amy mentioned, might not traditionally go to one of those town hall meetings that are more, cold and seeming a
Sure.
little more.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, going to,
Right.
we've heard that many times.
Yeah.
Go to where the people are, don't expect them to come to City Hall or come to the library.
Exactly. Yeah. They're busy. They're playing in basketball tournaments. Maybe that's where we should be setting up too.
Not a bad idea.
No, it is not. I've had discussions around football games.
Yeah,
Free rental space.
That'd be a great
Well,
one. The well would
sporting
be a great
events,
one.
art walk, all that, yeah.
We
Yeah.
need it soon though, before
Yeah.
September.
So just to clarify, because I think that this has been a little bit of a moving target in terms of who we're selecting for. So again, are we selecting only the steering committee, or are we selecting every single person that is going to go on the steering committee and then into those subcategories?
So I'll throw this out, and it's up for discussion, obviously, but I was under the impression that you were establishing the steering committee.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then there's going to be a chair for the steering committee, and whoever that is. Then that chair can work within the steering committee and establish a sub-chair
Yep.
for each of these
Okay.
programs. And then, the entire steering committee could recruit for each of those subs. But overall, I was looking to you for your 25, your
Yeah.
whatever
Okay.
you're looking at for your steering committee, and then we can move from there.
Perfect. I just think that it's really helpful for us to have a frame of reference as we think about, okay, now that we come back to the list that we have and thinking about what that steering committee is going to look like, because I think it got a little muddy when we talked about the subcommittees, and so just having clarification that those subcommittees will be filled out at a later date with recommendations, and kind of people will be able to go back out into the community. So that this, again, allows an opportunity for more people that didn't really know at the front what a comprehensive land use plan was going to look like, that all of these other plans were going to be implemented under this larger umbrella of all of the comprehensive stuff that we're doing. So I think there are people now that might understand that a little bit better, and then could be recruited to a subcommittee. So I think that that's probably the way that we need to go. So I'm happy with
And it does
that
feel
being the thing.
more organic that way
Yeah.
with your list of 25-ish, and they have different points of contact than everyone on the
Exactly.
council. So I think you will get a more broad spectrum of community participation.
Well, and I think it also allows us the opportunity, even as council members, to say, okay, now we understand this a little bit more, and we can also, potentially point people in the direction of like, hey, you have an experience in this, and we're doing something specific about stormwater, and so getting those right people onto those subcommittees. I
But
think.
Amy, when we were talking about steering committee, that it was like 12 to 15. Did you say that that's the target number?
Yes, I believe that's kind of what we were looking for. And we also have kind of outlined, ideas on different kind of hats that we would like to see filled, as Mary Elizabeth kind of described. So all of that's kind of laid out for you when you
Mary
go into
Elizabeth, you
that
said-
selection process.
I'm sorry.
No,
You said 15?
12 to
12 to
15 for the
15?
steering committee.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, we'll have to shorten our list down. That's fine. They're,
Two-piece?
It's gonna be a
Yeah.
bloodbath.
It's okay.
we can do that.
We can do
That we have a retreat coming, and so we've got time to be able to do that. I had just planned on about 20, and I couldn't get it below 22.
Well, some of those people might be great on those
Sure.
subcommittees.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yep.
And-
It's just choosing the which we, never mind, I can't get the English right. Choose the right people.
Well, and part of the problem that we've seen historically is that the committees get large
Yeah.
and they say, well, there's 35 people on there, I don't need to go tonight. And so then the next meeting that they do go to, they're behind, and so we end up circling back around. So yes, I mean, it would be nice if we had a smaller committee.
Yes, sir.
Just super quick, Ms. Hudson, you looked at the extra work under the scope? Because there seems to be like a plethora of items that fall under extra work.
For each different master plan.
Yes, in the different master plans.
Yeah.
So we went through that pretty extensively to ensure we're not going to be looking at extra work in the future and more fees to the city,
The scope,
the scope.
we started this in January. The scope has been gone over, I cannot tell you how many times.
So
And-
pretty high assurance that we're not going to be looking at extra work.
Yeah,
when we're all set
and
up.
some of that is already factored into the budget that you received, so it won't be a surprise later on down the road.
Well,
And Councilmember Ball just did, and it's not just Jane and Jane's team that gone over the scope, it's Mr. Mattingly and Mr. O'Leary and all of the, the folks who will live in each one of those master plans have participated heavily in making sure the scope is.
As long as there's no
is
surprises.
comprehensive, and I think, boy, if we get surprised after all this work, it will be a surprise. So-
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from council? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're adjourned for, till 6:30. Good evening, and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority, meeting of July 25th, 2023. Madam Clerk, will you please call a roll?
Councilmember Ball,
Present.
Councilmember Schuler. Here. Councilmember Montoya. Here. Councilmember Grant. Here. I'm sorry. Councilmember Nash, sorry, I lost my track.
Here.
Councilmember Foreman. Here. Councilmember Holman.
Here.
Councilmember Peacock.
Here.
Mayor Heikla.
I am here. Thank you, ma'am. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 1, approval of the City Council special meeting minutes of February 28th, 2023, City Council conference meeting minutes of April 11th, 2023, and April 25th, 2023, City Council study session meeting minutes of April 18th, 2023, and City Council special meeting minutes of June 6th, 2023. I'll need a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and second. The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the minutes passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Time for council announcements, and I'll start with Ward 1.
No announcements.
My only announcement for tonight is that I will not be here for the first meeting in August. I have a work summit that I cannot miss. So this will be the first meeting, voting meeting that I've missed in my 2 years on council. So that's the only thing.
Good evening, Norman, Oklahoma. I just have 2 announcements. First, I would like to thank city staff for addressing the concerns and questions of my constituents that have expressed to me thus far. Your quick and thorough responses are greatly appreciated. My deepest condolences to the family of the victim who suffered gunshot wounds after a road rage incident on July 18th in Ward 3, who ultimately passed away from the injury he sustained from the incident. Lastly, for those of you here with us and watching online, thank you.
Councilmember Grant?
Yes, I just have 2 announcements. I hope everybody had a great art walk. I got to visit a few of our downtown businesses. I got to talk to Opolis and Yellow Dog Coffee and Oscillator about potentially scheduling a 988 service provider from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse to come talk to them about how to use 988. At a chamber lunch and learn, I got to hear how 911 calls can become 988 calls or vice versa. I thought it was really enlightening and hope to see more of those informational opportunities come to our community. And then the second announcement is about some construction at Porter and Eufaula. There's going to be a temporary closure between Porter Avenue and Crawford Avenue and a portion of Eufaula Street. And it's going to be about 2 weeks, and we have information on our city website. Thank you.
Councilmember Nash?
There's no announcements this week. Thank you.
Councilmember Foreman?
No comment tonight, Mayor.
Councilmember Holman?
Just briefly, wanted to let everybody know the Norman Youth Council applications are due by August 7th. So if you have kids in high school and they're interested in knowing more about what goes on here at the City Hall and all the different departments, I would definitely encourage you to apply for that. And other thing I would like to mention, I was going to talk about this briefly last time and didn't have it prepared yet, but just wanted to give, since I just started a new term on the council, a perspective of what it is like up here to do this job. So I mentioned before that I've served with 37 different council members and 4 mayors over 10 years. And during that time, of the 29 of them that are no longer serving currently, only 10 of them lost re-election over the last 10 years. So 19 council members over the last 10 years have made a choice not to do this anymore. And many of them after 1 term, some after 2. And I just want everybody to understand that for $100 a month and no benefits, this is really a volunteer job for all of us. And we may not all agree with each other all the time, and you may not agree with us all the time. But all of us, I think, are doing this because we do care a lot about what happens in this community. We may have different approaches to how we're trying to address the problems and situations that we come across. But I just want to make it very clear from my perspective that this is a very difficult thing to do. And as evidenced over the last 10 years, it's so difficult that a lot of people actively choose not to do it anymore after a very short time. So as a growing city like we are, over 130,000 people, in a metro area of nearly 1.5 million people, we are dealing with issues of a growing city that are very stressful, they're complicated, they feature change that can make us very uncomfortable when we're used to the way things have been in our neighborhood or in our area or in our city as a whole. So I just encourage everybody to think about those things, and that I think we're all interested in doing the right thing and making improvements to our community that benefit us all. And just wanted to share that perspective about what it's like sitting on this side of the dais, and how many different people have done it over the last 10 years, and various reasons why they may not have kept doing it anymore. So I just appreciate all of us that are up here, that are willing to do this, even when we disagree. And I appreciate all of you in the audience that have taken the time tonight and in other meetings to come down here to City Hall and sit through these meetings and to get up and give your opinion to us about what you think is going on, suggestions and solutions for things that we could pursue to remedy situations. So I appreciate all of you, and I want to encourage you all to get your neighbors and your friends and your family to also get involved and follow what's going on here at City Hall and the different things going on in Norman as a whole. So that's what I got this week. I, again, appreciate you, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Peacock.
Thank you. Mr. Paul Wilson asked that I announce that Chuck E. Cheese and the University North Park area will be having their grand reopening this week, so please get out there and patronize them. Thank you.
Nothing from the mayor. Next item on the agenda is consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so City Council, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine agenda items that they wish to be approved or acknowledged by one motion. Staff recommends that items 2 through item 28 be placed on the consent docket. I need a motion to place items 2 through 28 on the consent docket.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The motion on the floor is to place items 2 through 28 on the consent docket. Council members. You may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to place items 2 through 28 on the consent docket passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent docket.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and second. Are there any comments from council regarding any item on the consent docket? Hearing none. Oh. Councilmember.
Yes, I just want to direct everyone's attention to item number 22. We've been talking quite a long time about our comprehensive land use plan and all of the different kind of updates to stormwater and transportation and things like that. So in this item, we are, I would say, finally putting the proposal, the contract for for the services for the consultant into place, and we'll be starting that process within the next month. So there will be opportunities for people to serve on committees and various things. So if you are interested in seeing some more or hearing more about what we have coming forward, we just talked about it in our conference session, so you can go back and watch the video. But there's going to be lots of engagement and conversation moving forward about our comprehensive land use plan.
Any others? All right, motion on the floor is to approve the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the consent docket passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Non-consent items. Item number 29. Ordinance number 0222339. Upon second and final reading, rezoning property located at 485 College Avenue from R3 Multifamily Dwelling District to R1 Single Family Dwelling District. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
A motion and second. Is there a representative of the applicant here?
Stephen Till, 490 Elm Avenue. Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, where do I see the? Other way? Ta-da. Okay. Okay, hopefully we start with an easy one for you guys. I don't think you get a lot of down zoning, but this is a property behind mine. When I bought it, it was a triplex, so it had 3 different addresses. I'm going to do a renovation on it. It's going to be a guest house. So the neighborhood, a little pointer here, everything in the neighborhood is R1, and this is all in the historic district. This property across the street right here is the library, bar, and the property to the south is a Hillel Center. This is a property right here. So after we down it this or get this zone to R1, I'm going to be, it's because in the Historic Society, I'm going to be renovating it and be going through the Historic Society to get all that done. That's the front of the property. And I'll be doing a total gut out renovation. We've already actually, it used to have 2 meters, so I've already taken those out. So we'll just have 1 meter. This back used to be an apartment, has all been gutted out. That's just going to be a shed, basically a shed. And then this was a separate property. This front part had an address and the back part had an address, and we're just going to make that all a house. And the house in its current configuration meets all R1 requirements as far as the lot size and setbacks. And that's it. I'll be glad to answer any questions if somebody has it.
Mr. Teal, I have a question. You said you were going to take that shed in the back that was a residence in the back, and you were going to turn it into a shed. We're doing a lot of discussion on ADUs. Now I can't think of the thing. Accessory dwelling unit, thank you. And turning sheds into living spaces. Can you tell me your thought process through that?
Why I'm turning it into a shed? Well, I have the house right behind it, so this is actually going to be used as a guest house.
Got it.
So the shed will kind of be the backyard could be shared on the property, and then that'll be the shed where I keep all the stuff up. But.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Grant?
Hi. Did you talk to any of the neighbors by chance? It looked like you didn't have to have like a 350-foot radius notification letter. But
No, I did do that at the Planning Commission. So it's a down zoning, so I'm kind of limiting actually what I can do with the property.
Yes.
At R1, I'm going to be able to do very little with it versus R3.
So I anticipate your neighbors were generally favorable of this? Okay. No protest or anything?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes. The backyard of your residence in this, will there still be a fence in between, or are you joining them? Or?
There will not be a fence between the 2 properties.
Between your house and?
Correct.
So it'll be conjoined or joined together, I guess.
Well, they're going to be 2 separate properties as far as the lot. So someday, if I wanted to sell that or somebody wanted to sell it, they could.
But you won't have to walk around the block to access this property on College?
No,
though?
correct.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Councilmember Peacock?
Thank you. You did say you were renovating this house, not scraping it and rebuilding?
Well, it's in the Historic Society, so I don't have a choice, but no, I'm
Well,
gonna,
that's why I'm asking.
I'm gonna work with them, whatever they want me to do. There's not gonna be any arguments on that, so I'd like for them to design it actually, so I'm trying to get them to do that, but.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Anything more from council? No? This is an opportunity for members of the public to be able to speak. Is there anybody we have registered to speak on this?
Yes, sir, we have Evan Dunn.
This for sure. And I would also support us starting a program in which every project like this would be entered into a raffle for a free solar water heater. That could be interesting.
Thank you, sir.
Mary Francis? Okay, that's all, Mary.
The motion, well, are there any final comments? Nobody came up with, no, okay. Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast. The ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion and second. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast. The ordinance on final reading passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Teal. Item number 30, ordinance number 0222346, upon second and final reading, granting the special use for a public utility in the A2 Agricultural District for property located in the southwest corner of 48th Avenue Northwest and Franklin Road, West Franklin Road. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Motion to adopt.
I have a motion and a second. Is there a representative of the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Carpenter on behalf of Williams, Box, Forshee, and Bullard, the applicant making the application on behalf of OG&E. Council, we are here today after the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend this item. This is an OG&E substation, but it's important to note that this is to serve the NextEra line. This is not for an OG&E line. Per the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, OG&E is required by law to make their system available to other energy companies. As you all know, NextEra is planning for a line to come through the area. So because of that, OG&E has to make their substations available. Currently, there is a substation at the corner just south, 510 feet south of Franklin Road on the east side of 48th Avenue. That substation does not currently have 345 kilovolt accessibility. And so that's why a new substation is required. NextEra is building a 345 kilovolt line. That's what OG&E has to make available. Please understand that OG&E does not get to choose the route of that line. That's solely within NextEra's abilities. The only thing that OG&E gets to do is look at where the NextEra line is coming through to make that substation available. Please note that OG&E did do study of multiple properties in the area. It was determined that this corner, because of the substation or the substructure of the underground, was the most advantageous to be able to support this size of substation. Also, the homes in the area are used to having a substation nearby, since the Pleasant Valley one is located just south, really south and east of this current property. Further, OG&E owns this subject tract. So this is not something that they'd have to go in and get easements. There are no trees on the property that would be required to be cleared. All of those factors were considered when they conducted the study of the location of this substation. The location is, like I said, at the corner, the southwest corner of Franklin Road and Northwest, 48th Avenue Northwest. There are 2 access points that are proposed off of Franklin Road. Those would only be used for access. I think I keep going the wrong way, sorry about that. Those would only be used for access for maintenance vehicles, so we do not expect a large amount of traffic to be created by this. In addition to that, you'll see that there are transmission lines in the area already. This will not create anything new that the residents are not already willing and have accepted in the area. Now, there was a letter of protest at the Planning Commission, and the specific request was that the substation be moved further west and further south. The property further west and further south has a sandy underground component, which is not suitable for the weight of this substation, and that's why that was not possible. The substation will be set back 210 feet from Franklin, so there will be a significant setback. It'll also be set back 216 feet from 48th Avenue Northwest. We do have representatives here from OG&E to be able to answer any specific questions about the building of the substation. Because this substation is intended to be used by the Nextera line, we don't have information about the service area. That's a question that would be better suited for Nextera. We are asking that this application be approved, that it allow a public utility use on this property. We have agreed that a chain link fence will be put around the property and additional paneling will be provided so as to provide additional site obstructions for the nearby residents. And this is similar, not obviously blue, but this is similar to what that material would be, so as to hide the substation from the nearby residents. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Holman?
Thank you. The existing substation across the street, is that one stay?
That one does stay. That serves OG&E, the OG&E system that's in place.
So, okay, so is OG&E being forced to build this other one?
Well, forced is a relative term. The federal law does require that they open their system to other utility systems. Nextera was the company who effectively won the bid to create this line. And because the substation is in the area, they do have to make their system available. OG&E is the system in the area. Nextera's responsibility is the transmission line. OG&E has to make their substation available. Pleasant Valley is not of sufficient size. It also doesn't have the kilowatt requirements of that would be able to meet the needs of what the Nextera transmission line provides.
So OG&E's having to build a new substation.
Correct.
Is Xterra paying for that?
I don't know that answer, but I don't believe so.
I'm wondering what the benefit is to OG&E ratepayers if another company is using their property. I don't know seems strange to me.
It definitely
that
is.
your existing facility can't support what they're asking for, so you have to build a brand new one. That's
right. So it would tie
another
into our
company is using
system.
it? That's interesting.
Yes, we agree.
Okay. Is that a new federal law?
It is not your.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peacock.
Councilmember Holman addressed my question about the other old substation, but I'm looking at this screening on the fence here. Have you guys discussed maybe going with landscaping instead of a chain link fence or something that's more aesthetically pleasing? I mean, this is a hard corner here, 48th and Franklin.
Right.
I know there's not a whole lot of development out there now, but there will be at some point in the future, and I'd really hate to give up this prime corner and just surround it with a chain link fence.
So Planning Commission members did ask about landscaping. Due to the nature and the kilowatts that are present on this property, electrical companies try not to put foliage around their substations, so that was not something that OG&E could agree to do. This was something that we discussed with the Planning Commission, the Planning Commissioners, and what we resolved was the best option for providing some sight line. The area does, if you're familiar with it, it does sit a little higher on the west side of 48th. So the sight line, you won't see the entire substation from 48th Street. You will from Franklin, just due to the location and the direction. But this fencing and this slat product would provide a little bit different perspective, and choosing a color that blends in a little bit more will help hide that substation.
Okay. And can you speak just a little bit more? You alluded to the sandy base further west on a site as being the reason why we couldn't develop that one.
Sure.
Or what piece of equipment specifically are we talking about that couldn't be supported there? I mean,
So I do have our engineers here, and I'm gonna defer to them. I'm gonna give you the general answer and then defer to them. With the weight of the substation and the structures that are required to hold up the substation, the sandy underground formations would not hold that weight. If you'd like a more detailed answer, I would ask them to come up and provide that.
I'm just curious if, the delta and cost difference might be something that NextEra might be willing to help facilitate and, get this facility in more of a desirable lot down Franklin a little bit. So I'd love to hear the engineer's answer.
Sure, I will tell you, OG&E owns the property, and I'll back up a little bit. OG&E owns the property at the corner, and there is a requirement for detention pond on this property. Knowing the way that water runs, that detention pond has to be further lower on the property, which is further west. So accommodating the detention pond and the structure requires that it be pushed further to the east. If there's additional engineering that you all would like to provide.
That satisfied my answer. I was
Okay,
kinda
thank
curious.
you.
I mean, I didn't know if there was any path forward to maybe shifting this down, because again, my heartburn comes from this being a hard corner.
Right.
And I know once we put this there, this is what's going to be there for perpetuity. So I just want to make sure we've explored all options.
We have, thank you.
This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comment regarding this item. Madam Clerk, anybody signed up to it?
Evan, Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. That was a great presentation. It's prompted a number of questions. One, I agree with my council rep. I'm not so sure I understand this business relationship. And secondly, if it's 210 feet from the street, that sounds like that's a fairly good distance to have some vines of some type or something to obscure that substation. I don't know. This is another thought. What if we had some type of requirement in that Bergie Wind is here, right? I find it hard to believe that there is this need when there are all of these rooftops that don't have solar, they don't have small scale wind. We've really got to start addressing that, each and every one of us. Thank you.
Mary Frances?
More concerned about
Ma'am?
having a meeting where one of our
Ma'am?
council people
Ma'am?
has not.
You're out of order, please.
Stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. You're out, okay.
Ellen Grant should not be here. I didn't vote for her.
Yes, ma'am.
Mary Frances, would you like to speak?
Francis, Ward 7. I'm not sure that I understood, what is the setback of the fencing? Could the setback from the road of the fencing?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead, feel free.
The fence line will be set back 210 feet from Franklin.
Oh, the fence line will, okay, I
Yes.
thought you meant the building would.
Yes,
No.
and there isn't a building, so it's the substation and the fence.
Okay, I see that, yeah, okay.
One other thing to point out is there are some easements in this area along the road line that would prohibit us from putting anything in that easement location. And those are easements that are not OG&E easements, so.
And also the capacity of the existing substation versus the capacity of the other one that you're going to put in?
Sure, this new one, it has to be able to serve 345 kilovolt capacity, which the Pleasant Valley one that's currently existing and it provides services for OG&E users is not that high of a capacity. It's 138.
Okay, and this one is going to be 200?
345.
345.
Yes.
Okay, and okay. I just didn't understand the fencing in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any final comments from council? Hearing none. Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
I have a motion and a second. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter, wherever you went. All right. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address City Council. Due to Open Meeting Act regulations, council is not able to participate in discussion during events. Remarks should be directed at council as a whole and be limited to 3 minutes or less. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for miscellaneous comments?
Yes, Mayor. We'll start with Nicole LaRose.
Nicole?
Okay. Move on to Diana Hetzel.
Evening, Diana Hetzel, Ward 5. Tonight I'm here to discuss additional concerns about Norman's crime. But before I begin, I want to thank the Norman PD for their continued fight against crime based upon the stats that were on K4 News yesterday. Kudos to them. 2 weeks ago, I shared FBI crime stats for Norman that were released in October 2022. 92% of U.S. cities with similar populations had less crime and were rated safer than Norman. Norman's overall crime rate was 34.4 crimes per 1,000 residents. Tonight I want to talk about more recent information. OSBI released its annual Crime in Oklahoma report this past February. Data was collected from 439 Oklahoma law enforcement agencies, including the Norman PD. OSBI reporting requirements captured significantly more crime data than the FBI information I presented previously 2 weeks ago. Norman PD submitted 8,289 crimes for the reporting period. This did not include the 484 OU crimes reported separately by OUPD. The resulting crime rate for Norman was 65.11 crimes per 1,000 residents. The increased data resulted in a crime rate 30 points higher than what I shared with you 2 weeks ago. Norman PD met OSBI reporting requirements, but OSB requirements did not capture all crime and only captured a subset. Norman actually experienced 14,974 crimes during the reporting period, an additional 6,685 more than captured by OSBI, 45% more crime. Norman's crime rate wasn't 65.11 crimes per 1,000 residents. Based upon the overall crimes committed, it was actually 117 crimes per 1,000 residents for the reporting period, 51 points higher than the OSBI report. But the data the FBI and OSBI captured was for crimes committed in 2021. If we look forward to 2022 crime data, a review of the Norman PD's annual report shows that Norman's crime rate actually rose in 2022 as well. It increased from 117 to 118 crimes per 1,000 residents. If we look at where we are this year, 2023 in comparison with last year, crime in Norman is on the rise based upon Norman PD data as of 30 June. Robbery is up 15%, aggravated assaults up 14%, arson up 33%, kidnapping up 33%, fraud forgery up 8%, DUI up 26%, public intoxication up 4%, runaways up 76%, drug violations up 16%, threats and harassment up 8%, other crime up 8%. Even when you factor in other areas that have remained the same or improved somewhat, overall total crime in Norman is up 3% from last year. I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate and respect the extremely challenging, difficult work Norman Police Department officers and staff do every day to serve the public and protect the citizens of Norman. It's not an easy job, especially when you're consistently understaffed. City Council and City Manager, please take or facilitate whatever actions are necessary now to make our city safer. I encourage everyone to go out to the internet and take a look at the data. Thank you for your time.
Becky Bender.
Please don't. Excuse me, sir. Don't. No clapping.
I'm thinking about the children tonight. In many scriptures, Jesus made it clear that children were a high priority to him, to God. Here is one of those scriptures in Luke 18. Then Jesus called for the children and said to the disciples, "Let the children come to me. Don't stop them, for the kingdom of God belongs to those who are like these children." In my earlier comments, I spoke of a child in a laundry room who felt fear when a homeless man threatened to stab this child. He possessed a knife with an open blade. And today, I read you the letter of a citizen in Norman who is afraid to come here to speak. Listen to what this child also had to endure. I know the answers to this problem are difficult, but at the very least, I'm asking that every council person will begin to speak about the effects that are happening to our children and others through no fault of their own. Help us all to know that you hear and you understand. And now I quote this mama's letter. I have lived at Ponca and Gray area for 2 years, and I am amazed at the number of homeless and drug-addicted individuals that are flooding our area and town. I now have to wake up at 4 a.m. or earlier to their constant yelling. They are leaving trash all over my yard and shopping carts on my porch and backyard. They go through my trash constantly. I have a 10-year-old girl who has to constantly watch her back every time she is outside. We do not feel safe anymore. It wasn't even a month ago that my daughter was chased down by one of the many people constantly roaming our streets. I watched him as my daughter ran for her life to get away from him. As I confronted him, he declared that he was protecting my daughter. There were many officers there when I made my report. I remember 2 of them by name, Gomez and Knapp. We are letting Norman be ruined. End quote. 2 weeks ago, Sam Bayeth, in his comments, asked any council person to come with him to talk to the people who are understandably afraid to come and speak here. A month ago, one of our council persons went to the property that was being flooded and having problems so that he could really get an understanding and try to help. I commend him for going out of his way to understand the problem. Sam is asking the same thing. This has to do with people who are afraid. They want their city leaders to understand what they are facing. This has to do with the safety of the people, and it is not confined to one particular ward. It is all the wards. So I ask you, I urge you, to set up a time with Sam to meet with the people of Norman who would love to have your ear. Thank you all.
Diane Wheeler.
Diane Wheeler, Ward 8, and I know we're going to be talking about numbers and statistics, so I just hope it's hard, but I hope you'll focus on that. Norman Police Department daily arrest logs show that a total of 434 crimes were committed during the month of June. 250 were committed by 169 housed individuals. 168 were committed by 101 unhoused individuals. 21 individuals were arrested on multiple days during the month of June. Of those individuals, 6 were housed and 15 were unhoused persons. Although the unhoused individuals only represent 37% of the total arrestees, they were responsible for 71% of the multiple day arrests. And you'll see there, the majority were arrested on 2 different days in this chart. However, 3 were unhoused, and they were arrested on 3 different days, and 2 of the unhoused were arrested on 4 different days. But still, 71% of the multiple day arrests were the unhoused individuals. A total of 22 offenses were committed against law enforcement officers during the month of June. 12 were committed by housed individuals. 10 were committed by unhoused individuals. Although unhoused individuals only represented 37% of the total arrests, they were responsible for 45% of the crimes committed against law enforcement officers during the month of June. Just think about that again. 45% of the crimes were committed by unhoused individuals. The split of committed crimes in June between unhoused and housed does not coincide with the ratio of unhoused to housed persons living in Norman. The unhoused represent less than 0.2% of Norman's population. Okay, that's 200 people out of 100,000, but they're responsible for 42% of the crimes that were committed in June. I think that's pretty clear that there's an issue there. The Point in Time study conducted this past January recorded a total of 213 unhoused persons living in Norman. Some claim that that number of unhoused in Norman is rising at a significant rate. Others claim that number is just remaining steady at 213. If that's the case, then almost half of the unhoused persons in Norman committed one or more crimes during the month of June. Either way, the Norman Police Department crime data demonstrates that the unhoused community has a significant criminal element within it, and it cannot be ignored. And I hope you'll pay attention to that. Okay, thank you.
Brock Trotter.
Hello, and thank you all for your time today. My name is Brock.
Yourself, sir?
I'm sorry?
Would you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Brock Trotter. I'm a professional engineer of chemical engineering, graduate of the University of Oklahoma, and about to be a father. I'm here with my pregnant wife today. Thank you, thank you. Sadly, these happy times are turning a bit bleak with what we've seen with crime in our area and threats we've seen on our own property in the Ward 4 area. It is my understanding that there is going to be a moving of the low barrier shelter north of Tara Maharas potentially, very close to our house, very close to schools in the area, and very close to churches and parks in the area. As we've already seen from previous speakers today, there has been a considerable increase in crime, drug-related incidents, and other threats to the citizenry of Norman. I would like us all to consider exactly what we can do as individuals, as well as you, the elected representatives of Norman, to protect us, the citizens, those who voted for you, those who believe in you. Things have only gotten worse in my 9 years here. It used to be very, very safe for myself, my wife to walk these streets. We enjoyed the parks, took our dogs, and it was a dreamful place to live. It's why I decided to purchase a home here. It's why I decided to set up my family here. This is no longer the case. Every day, we're seeing people walking along our streets, people trying to break in on our streets off DAWs. It's no longer a safe community in these areas, and the solutions that are being proposed by this council are not long-term solutions. As we've seen, a large majority of the violence and crime that we're seeing is related to the unhoused population within the Norman area, and they are not necessarily from here, born here, or the traditional unhoused people that I actually knew and grew up seeing while I was a citizen here in Norman. We're now facing people being bussed in from out of towns, non-Norman residents that are threatening the safety and security of all of us as Norman citizens. And I urge you as a council, and I urge you as a citizenry to stand up together, unite, and do what it takes to ensure that we take Norman back for all those who wish to see it thrive, families to be safe and grow, and for all of us to have our dreams secured. Thank you.
Next, we have Robin Strader.
My name's Robin Strader. I'm Ward 5. I'm sure you guys remember me. To start off with, accountability. The state of being accountable or answerable, responsible for the fulfillment of obligations, liability to account for conduct. That goes into responsibility, which is something that is your job or duty to deal with. That goes into an email I received from 10 Miles dated on 5/18/20. Mrs. Strader, to give you a quick update, Our project consultant has finished their drainage evaluation. They confirmed what I suspected, which was the new reinforced concrete blocks installed at Tecumseh Road was constructed about 8 inches too high, which is resulting in water backing up onto your property. That right there, that's accountability, but I can get nobody to take responsibility for this. I went to our city manager and I asked him to look into this. And the reply that I got from him was that I purchased my home in 2011 during a drought. That has got absolutely nothing to do with what was done. My house was purchased in 2011 during a drought. The box was put in 2017, 6 years after I bought my house. The accountability and the responsibility can also fall into the fact of what these citizens have been talking about with Norman taking accountability and taking responsibility, not only for my problem, but for the other citizens of the city. That is what the city council's job is to do according to Oklahoma statutes, Title 11, Section 10, subsection 104. It is the responsibility of not only the city council, but the city manager. It is also the responsibility of our police force that is doing the absolute best they can with what they have. They need more resources. The city council needs to look into that. Thank you.
Kitty O'Brien. Carlinda Gravel.
Carlinda Gravel, Ward 4, Mayor, council members. I've been meeting with officials and employees. I'm here to share what I've been told we as citizens can do. This information is not intended to offer any kind of legal advice. This information is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge. When you encounter suspicious or criminal activity, call the police. If we're not sure whether to call 911 or non-emergency, call 911. After giving dispatch the information, be willing to wait for the officer in case they need more information. If no officer is available, or it'll be a while before one is available, specifically request a county deputy. Our amazing law enforcement are working hard and working together to protect our city. An officer must eyewitness a misdemeanor for themselves. If they do not, and we did, we can ask to sign a third-party witness statement form. This means we are willing to appear in court if needed, and this will allow our valuable police officers to hold the individual accountable for the crime. If we just call and can't assist further, every time we call, it pings our area. This is important. It pings our area and alerts officers we need help. They can increase patrol or whatever they need to do to protect our area. If we do not call, they do not know, so call every time. Todd at 988 said before and again today, if you witness an individual having a mental health crisis and you call 988, they can only send a team if the person agrees to stay put. The individual has to want help. If someone appears to be a danger to oneself or a danger to others, call the police. If the officer does not witness it, but we did, we can request to sign a third-party witness statement form so the officer can take them for a psychological evaluation. Since the last time we met, I witnessed an individual in crisis. I worried about her vulnerability to be victimized. A passerby said she was foaming at the mouth. I called 988, who connected me with NPD, who sent a CIT officer. The individual was clearly in need of medical help, according to the officer, but was not a danger. According to St. Anthony Hospital Psychiatric Geriatric Unit, failure to thrive is a very real danger to oneself and does warrant the courts to get involved. However, others have said the individual must be an immediate danger to oneself. This is especially concerning to me. My mother, who suffered from severe mental illness, when she stopped using toilet paper, the court saved us. When she would pay her rent but spend the rest at the dollar store and we had no food for the rest of the month, the court saved us. There was so many incidents from my childhood that I was saved from being a homeless child. Thank you.
Chelsea Gravel.
You ready? I'm Chelsea Gravel, Ward 4. I'm Carlinda Gravel's daughter. City manager, mayor, and council, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'd like to thank our police department for working diligently, and I'd like to thank the others that are listening and doing what they can to help. Change is happening. That's because people are listening. I'd like to speak about Art Walk. We must preserve and protect to remain a safe place for families and children. There are a few things from Art Walk that I'd like to bring to your attention. At the corner of Main and Jones, on the southwest corner, a lady stripped down to her bra and boxers, changing clothes openly on the public sidewalk. Also, a returning group from last summer, calling themselves a movement, set up on the northwest corner and the southwest corner on Main and Crawford. They had 4 professional-grade cameras. 2 were on tripods, and 2 were being held, facing passerbys for the loud, angry, confronting conversations. The persons were wearing body-sized graphic posters and passing out graphic, violent literature to passerbys as they were loudly calling them murderers and baby killers, attempting to stir up rage and violence. What you have in your hands is the literature that was passed out and left behind for our children to possibly discover. And what I picked up on my morning walk off the sidewalk the next morning. Inside the pamphlet is a graphic and real photo, true to size, with a dime for reference. This is a human mutilated body part. As I combed the area looking for more literature, I dangerously left behind. I did find one other piece, right here, all torn up and ripped up. I'd also like to speak about Sprouts. I have an update. The lady behind, there was a lady bathing in the women's bathroom sink, completely naked, and she was on that time of the month. There was a quote, "My employees risk their own safety to clean up bodily fluid that could be life-threatening for them." A man continues to shoot up in the men's bathroom, attempting to flush his needles down the toilet, damaging the plumbing. Quote, "Every time I see a parent let their child go to the bathroom alone, I cringe in hope that no one is there doing these things." A man rushed upon one of my young, new employees. The man put his fist in the boy's face, saying, "I could kill you right now," as he gritted his teeth. We can help by reaching out to Sprouts Corporate at sprouts.com. At the bottom of the page, select Contact Us and fill out the form. Topic from the drop-down menu, select Other, and you can enter the location of our Norman Sprouts. You can even
Evan.
Garfield Avenue. Oh, you know what I think about this situation. You know what my prescriptions are. You know what my diagnosis is. Do I need to say it again? Permaculture gardens, massive programs by which we're documenting people, we're housing them, we're giving them rehabilitory skill training. Basic. How hard is it to put a shovel in the ground? How hard is it to weed a garden? These are people who want to contribute. Most of them want to contribute, except for those who have been so dysfunctionally traumatized that they're... I believe in the infinite potential of the human DNA design and its infinite redeemability. But there are some of us, and research shows this to be true, if you don't get certain stimulation, if you don't get held and touched and cared for and cultivated, your neurological and physiological development will be arrested for the rest of your life, or you will be capped out, or you will require other human beings to help you mitigate those problems so that you can operate in the world. Reagan said something about it's amazing what we can accomplish when no one cares who gets the credit. I don't care. Don't put my name on anything. Okay, so I have a couple what ifs. All right, what if we bought a couple thousand wide brim hats, straw hats? We could get them cheap if we get them in mass, and we give them to people. Think about we could do a joint venture with the health authority talking about skin cancer, talking about how you see people walking around all day long. They're out there and they're exposing more of their skin to solar radiation, which is going to increase the need to cell replicate and to heal, which increases cancer risk. Or what if we paid for people to do sleep studies? Sleep is it's 1/3 of our lives. We've got to be perfecting that. Reality shows. What if we got Bryce to get a team and we did reality shows, a day in the life of the city manager, a day in the life of, a councilman, a day in the life of, a city employee? I don't know, it could be cool. To Councilmember Holman's disposition, I so empathize. And I remember a couple years back, we were going to do something with the Charter Review Committee. You all need resources. You all need to be able to finance small projects in your districts or in your wards.
Thank you.
Mary Frances?
Mary Frances, Ward 7, and a gift from my friend who is a Teamster. And you ask, why do they call themselves union thugs? And that's because that's what they were called whenever they went on strike. And so they took that name as a point of pride. So that's a gift from one of my union friends. I have been going with them to the practice picketing because I pledged to be on the picket line if they did strike. It looks like they have reached an agreement. However, I am also reading through the comments on their website. We have a private website, and they will be voting on this contract that's been offered to them from August the 3rd through August the 22nd. And so it's not necessarily a done deal yet. However, I was very proud of the Teamsters. They were offered earlier, a few weeks ago, a fairly decent contract for the full-timers. And they left the part-timers in the dust. And the full-timers said, no, we're not going to deal with that. No, that's not fair. Over 50% of the Teamsters are part-timers. You've got to come back with decent conditions and decent wage. So that's where we're at with the Teamsters and the strike. Earlier people, on a different note here, spoke expressing a consistent theme, which is that we have unhoused and a serious problem with those people, and we have no, as one person mentioned, no long-term solutions. Well, long-term solutions, I agree, are needed for this issue, and that will require considerable funds, not the $500,000 for renovating a place, no. And that wouldn't have housed it anywhere close to what the problem is anyway. So I don't have a solution, and I didn't hear them provide a solution either, but I agree, we do have a serious problem, and it is that these people are unhoused. Food and shelter, housing first, is a proven solution, and I hope that that will be considered.
Yes, sir.
I just have a couple comments because I do appreciate always data being shared about Norman. And I just want to add a few points of my own to consider the totality of the circumstances we're dealing with. In the last 10 years, Norman's population has grown by over 20,000 people. That's more than an entire city council ward worth of people. The Oklahoma City metro area has grown by almost 200,000 people. Oklahoma City is the 20th largest city in the United States now. It was one of only 11 cities in the United States to grow by more than 100,000 people in the last 10 years, and is the 6th fastest growing large city in the United States. Oklahoma City also ranks 34th in the United States in violent crime per capita. Tulsa ranks 16th, by the way. And as a comparison, Los Angeles ranks 68th and New York City ranks 83rd. So we live in an area that is rapidly growing, as I mentioned in my earlier comments. 200,000 people in this metro area, over 20,000 people to Norman alone in the last 10 years, is going to result in issues of growth problems, infrastructure stress, crime, and, like I said, housing. So all of those issues are related to population growth, as I said, and that has to be taken into perspective. If you're going to quote statistics, you need to talk about the overall statistics that go along with it. I would also note that last month we approved the largest budget in the history of the Norman Police Department. And in the last 8 months, this council has approved almost $2 million in additional funding to the Norman Police Department at their request for equipment, training, all sorts of stuff. Almost $2 million in addition to their regular $33 million plus budget, which is the largest of any department in the city by far. So I just want to make it clear, this council has invested a lot of resources in the Norman Police Department, more than any other department by far. And I agree, they are doing the best they can with what they have, and every single police department in the United States is struggling with staffing, every single one. And what I hear from Norman Police Department is that things are looking very good as far as staffing, and they expect to be able to more adequately address these issues in the very near future, not years from now, but the near future. And so I just say all this because these comments are not falling on deaf ears up here. We are listening, and these issues do concern all of us. We all live in this town too. Several of us have businesses or work for businesses in downtown Norman, just like I do, and as Councilmember Grant does. And so I just want to, again, make sure that we're considering the entire perspective of what our city is going through right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? We are adjourned.